The first issue I'm going to talk a little bit about is the biking lanes, the super bike highways. I'm going to take you on part of a tour that is following one of these routes, and so that you can get an impression about what it is like to actually pass by in Copenhagen on a super cycle highway and how it is planned. So the tour I made is this. I started out here in very close to the water, and I drove around a little bit further away from center of Copenhagen, from where we had been before. In the first 2 or 3 lectures, we were in this part of the city, so I'm moving a little bit further out in this ring along some of the major roads, passing through an area which is mostly housing, and around here and moving through other housing areas, and going into the center of the city through Vesterbro, and actually passing by the inner harbor and going along this and back into the center of the city. So that's the tour we're going to go on, and I am pinpointing a certain number of stops along this route. First of all, here I'm standing, this is my bike, and I'm standing here looking out into the water. I'm very close to one of the new metro stations that I was talking about in the lecture. And I'm on my way to go into the country or into the city from out here. So then I'm passing along this major road and getting to this area, and what you will see is that whenever there is a bigger road, there is always in Copenhagen setting also a lane for the bikes, and the lane is relatively wide so that you can pass by and a number, you can have 3 bikes next to each other on these lanes on the bigger roads. And these, in this case, it shows that if you want to go to the right, then you have to go in and get closer to the sidewalk here to be able to control your trip in a relatively convenient way to go along here. So we are driving along here and getting further on to this area. And I'm here at this point now. I am, as you can see, this thing, or whatever you could call it, is actually so that you don't have to get off your bike if you're close to that one. You can leave your foot here on your hand here, and then you can simply wait for the light to turn green before you can pass over. And you can also see that in this case and here, you see some light pale yellow, pale blue pavement, which is also to direct you in terms of where do I want to be as a cyclist, and where do the cars have to take care and about me, because I have the priority to be here, and they have to kind of wait for me to pass by when I'm in the pale blue lines there. They're more evident here, and where this guy is biking is actually that road across here, and he's biking an area which is, by the way, actually quite interesting, and that is another issue that is connected to the bike lanes, and that is that many of them passes by cultural sites, so that you can actually, as a tourist or as a guest or as a citizen, get easily around and also stop up whenever you meet some sites of interest. In this case, it is the big cemetery, which is more or less in the center of Copenhagen. It has a long history to it. A lot of famous Danes are buried here. One of them you might know, it is H.C. Andersen, the fairy tale writer and narrator, that is one of the few persons known outside of Denmark. He's buried inside this cemetery, which is today a park and a very beautiful place to be in. A lot of people go there for picnicking and for spending time if they have an apartment or whatever in the center of the city and they don't have a garden or a balcony or whatever. Then they go to places like this and enjoy themselves and have picnics and so forth. We're going to pass a little bit longer down along this major road, and we're going to cross over here because this is where you actually to begin to have a specific lane designed specifically for bikers. So here you will see that you can go by bike here, and you don't have to worry about car traffic in this sense. The only thing you have to worry about here is that there are both pedestrians and bikes and roller skaters and whatever moves on a slower pace than the car traffic. So let's cross over and drive along this curvy road until we reach this bridge, which is specifically designed for pedestrians and bikers and allows you to cross over a heavily traffic road so that you don't have to interfere with car traffic here. Car traffic can be more efficient, and you are also protected as a pedestrian or a biker against the heavy traffic. So we're crossing a little bit further along this pavement, and you will see that here we kind of scale down to a more intimate, closely dense, cozy, nice way of moving around in the city. And there are many of these lanes around. I'm just choosing one out of several. And we're passing by when we go on a lane like this. This specific lane that I went by here is connected to the Business School of Copenhagen. And whenever there is a university or a business school or a private school or a public school, there are always places for bikes to be parked, so that it also kind of supports the intention about moving traffic from car traffic to bike traffic. We're moving a little bit further along this bike lane here, and see that you also passes through areas with some interesting architectural buildings along them, which is also part of the experience and part of the feeling good atmosphere closely connected to the bike lanes. And we go a little bit further, and you also, in this case, you cross under a road or you cross under a railway, and there is always this scale shows you that it's for the bikes and for the pedestrians, not for anything bigger than or faster than that. And I have kind of, I'm not jumping too much down into stops before I get to this area, and that is basically because it's more than less like many places it's like driving along where also the car traffic is, but we're beginning to close in on an area also now where we have special issues and special lanes designed for bikers. And I'm just wanted to show you that we also pass over, for instance, the big railway systems and stuff on our way around the city to experience what it's like to get around there. I was down here at that look you just saw, and I'm going further on because I'm moving across the inner harbor now to get to the other side and to get along the inner harbor. Along this bridge. It is called the bicycle serpent, and in Danish that has a double meaning. It's both like a curvy road, but it's also the ties. The ties as such is also called a slange, which means a serpent in Denmark. So this curvy lane designed specifically for bikers are showing us something of that. Let's see what it's like. And you can see the bikers up along here, and the fact that it moves over the inner harbor and comes and meet another place and are in parallel tracks as the pedestrians. So we're down here now. And we are crossing over this bridge now. We will come back to this area later on in the course. But what maybe could be fun for you to know already is that these buildings are old silos that has been converted into modern housing. So in this case, you have two circular silos, and you have attached an additional layer of spaces and envelopes outside on these two silos. On that other silo here, you have made new homes within the geometry or the shape of the existing silo. And in that sense, you want to kind of maintain this industrial feel at the same time as you want it to be an interesting modern way of thinking urban development. And this bridge that crosses over here goes more or less directly into these two silos. That's not the case, but it looks like that when you're standing over here. But it is a way to get to the other side of the inner harbor and actually get fairly easily to the center of the city. And after having driven along here, having biked along here, I'm at this spot now, and more or less returning to the center of the city and crossing over by this bridge, which is fairly new. It was opened in 2019. And also in this case, you will actually note that it has like a shape and a way of undulating that also follows the fact that it needs to be highest on the middle, but it's also at a slope where you can easily get the advantages for biking upwards and downwards without having to strengthen yourself too much. So crossing over here, you see I'm standing here now and looking at this bridge, and it has a very beautiful curve to it. And it is quite amazing because what you can't see here, but what is in the reality is that right over here there is another bridge, which is a car traffic bridge, and that bridge is heavily used. So it's fairly big, and it's not too nice to go by on a bike. So what happened was the Copenhagen municipality decided to create this bike specifically, this bridge specifically for biking and for pedestrians, to simply move the biking traffic from the bigger bridge to this bridge, and to allow for bigger security and safety for both pedestrians and for bikers. And what is interesting is that it, in one way or the other, it sounded absurd originally to put another smaller bridge right next to the big bridge, but the fact is that it actually allows you to get from this part of the city very easily to this part of the city in a way which is much more convenient than what it used to be. So from that point of view, it's extremely popular and successful as a new way of getting around, a new contribution to how you get around in the city as a so-called soft mover, which is the expression we would use for bikers and pedestrians and people on roller skates and so forth. This is on my way back to the center of the city, and you can easily see now that we are so much in the center of the city that the city hall tower actually is in the sideline, and that is what makes it so, you could say, nice and easy to get around in the city. And whenever you may actually want to come back to Copenhagen in real life, I really suggest you and recommend you highly to go for a bike ride. Rent some of the bikes that you could get around, because you have some really nice tours around in Copenhagen on bike, and you are much more protected from heavy traffic on the super bike lanes than you would be if you were to ride your bike in the middle of the heavy traffic. So let's have a break, and after the break we'll look into the newest part of the metro.